Welcome back, everybody, to Your Creativity. It is a Monday afternoon. It's getting chillier, much chillier. I don't like it. My old bums don't like it. I'm not alone this time. For the past bit, I've been fairly alone with these, but we've got a special guest today. Molly, we had her on the podcast. I can't even remember how long ago. Can you, Molly?
I feel like it's been potentially a couple of years.
Yeah, that sounds right. And me and Molly are working on a podcast together called Ask the Stripper. It's going to be on the Utah Podcast Network soon. And it just goes into what she does for work and women's issues. And there's even a politics episode, which was fun.
I threw up a little in my mouth when you said that.
Yeah, but we're not here about politics. We're here to talk to somebody who had me on their podcast, In the Telling, which is about storytelling, and we dove into your creativity, how it relates. Liz Christensen, how are you?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing, Dylan and Molly?
We're doing good. So let's dive into the podcast first. How did In the Telling start? And we've had similar guests too, so you've got good taste in guests.
So do you. In the Telling, so I have a lot of friends who have podcasts, and I'd kind of batted around the idea really flippantly. Just like that might be a lot of fun. That might be a really good way to learn stuff. I really like learning things, and if I can learn them for free, it makes me really excited. But I love learning from people who really know what they're talking about. So often you don't get that opportunity to learn from masters without it being either difficult on your schedule or difficult on your wallet. So I ended up having this surgery about a year and a half ago, spring of 2019, that was unexpected for me. I didn't plan on it, and the recovery of it put me out really. Like I couldn't walk very well for a while. I didn't move much, for a couple weeks. And so it was like, oh, I guess the podcast is something I could do now. And I'd really wanted to go back for a master's degree, but I couldn't afford one. The program I want isn't really in my state, and my family wasn't going to move to support. Like, that's not what our family goals were about right then. So it just seemed like this will be a great way for me to do something creative with my limited mobility during my recovery time. And I'll get a chance to learn whatever I want to learn from really cool people that I want to meet. And I won't have to have student loans of thousands of dollars in order to do it. So it just sort of kind of all came together over the course of like a 24-hour period of sitting in a chair and thinking.
That is awesome. I always wonder how podcasts come about, and where the heart of it is. What is the purpose of your podcast? I think you asked me something similar to this. It's like, what do you feel the purpose is for it?
I really feel like the point of it is for me to learn something and follow my own curiosities. And that sounds like really selfish, but because I only do what I want to do, I haven't gotten burnt out ever about it, which is nice. Like, it's always exciting to me to do this stuff. And I feel like, if people are going to be generous and give me access to their expertise and their ideas and their interests, like, I want to share that with other people. There's got to be other people who are interested in learning what I'm learning. So it's definitely like not something that I just keep in my own audio files and listen to. I want to make it available to anybody else who's interested.
What are some of the highlight? Go ahead, Molly.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I just think it's like incredibly brilliant. I'm just like super impressed, and like how have I not ever thought of something like this? And that's just so cool and such a wonderful way to learn, and not that you're just keeping it for yourself, but that you are giving an opportunity for other people to learn from what you're learning.
Thank you.
That's all. I just think that's amazing. Wow.
Well, I'm not going to ask who's some of your favorites, but what are some of the highlights episodes that you've had?
I think I always feel like I kind of have some idea of what I might learn when I interview a guest. I don't know the answers, but I know kind of like the topic. And so some of my favorite interviews have been ones where I was even surprised by like what I was learning in terms of like the subtopics or whatever. Like I interviewed a musician named Gordon Vitas. He did my theme song because I just like his music. And then I found out that he doesn't even read music. He creates everything without even the music theory levels that I have. Like I can play the treble clef on the piano and that's it. And so I know how to read music more than he does, but I could never do what he does. And so learning then how he interacts with music as a composer and as a writer and as a performer, when it is not even the same foundational language that I associate with music, that was like totally fascinating. And I didn't think that that's where we were going to go at all. And that kind of happens in different places with other guests. I interviewed a slam poet, Jesse Parent, and I didn't think he'd make me cry, but his poetry like really touched me and was like a meaningful experience. So I think, all of the ones where I'm surprised, not just where I learned something, but like somebody kind of gave me a piece of their soul and touched my humanity, or just completely like took my attention and was like, yeah, that's interesting, but here's the cool thing I have for you, and it's this. I like that.
Yeah, I love being surprised by guests too. I learned, even if I've known the person for a long time, learning something new about them. In our episode with Steve, our 100th episode, I learned so many things about him that I didn't know before in that episode. So,
How long have you been doing that podcast with Steve?
Your Cre8tivity, it's over 4.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, he started on episode 3. Yeah.
And you learned stuff about him even after all that time.
Yeah, like his whole experience in the hospital, meeting nuns and all these different types of people, and how it basically evolved him into who he is today, and being so accepting of everybody. It was really interesting. Go check it out, episode 100.
I think one of the cool things about doing a podcast is that, like, when you ask people specific questions, or they know the entire point of the conversation is that they're supposed to say stuff, they'll say stuff that just doesn't normally come up, or they'll tell you things that are more in depth and personal than just kind of happens over pizza,
Yeah. And when it's organic and ongoing, you can start pulling really interesting stuff at them that they, like, I don't know if I want to say that type of stuff.
I've done a lot of that. Where I'm like, well, that's been recorded now, and I've said that, and I hope I don't offend this person or that person or lose my job or whatever.
Yeah, but we're learning that editing through our episodes. So you talked about Jesse Parent's creative writing. You also do writing. You're a playwright, and tell us about your writing and your style, and what do you like about it?
My writing has gone through a lot of different mediums, I guess. I think the first stuff I ever was paid to write were plays. But since the plays for the stage, I've been paid for screenplays and radio plays and poetry and a comic book. One comic book one time, which was really fun. That's really different, and I love working with a visual artist and kind of like learning new mediums. So I kind of write in all narrative fiction forms, or all fiction forms, performance or narrative. And I'm really good at the idea stuff and the plot creation. And then the part that's kind of laborious for me is the sitting down and actually like word crafting sentences into paragraphs, into like, I love dialoguing because it's just the way people talk. And I feel like since I come at writing maybe more from an actress background, I'm really comfortable with dialogue. But yeah, sometimes everybody hits writer's block, right? And when I get to that part, I'm like, oh, I have to pull my brain back from story creation and like just get through this line. That's not where my passion is.
And you've got to find it's rhythm, because if the dialogue doesn't have rhythm, it could feel clunky.
Yeah, especially if you're writing something that needs pacing and rhythm, and that's where you're bogged down. Then typically when you go back to edit, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can tell that was creatively constipated, and now we've got to let it kind of flow a little better.
Give it a bran muffin. And have you wrote for anything that you've performed in? Because you're also a performer and producer of like theater.
I have. Typically when that's the case, I have other writers touch it quite a bit and leave their fingerprints all over it, so that it's so that it's got checks and balances and isn't just such my precious little baby that I could be doing all kinds of really not good things with it, but because that's what I thought it needed to be, you know, ultimately I'm failing or I'm ineffective in what I wanted because no one's editing me. But I've done a radio play and a stage play where at the very least the story genesis was mine and the plot structure was mine, and then other writers did the dialoguing and then I edited their dialoguing. So especially the play had a lot of hands on it. Yeah.
Where did you find collaborators?
That's a really good question. I think that's one of the benefits of not working for yourself in the industries, like not being independently contracted. When you work for other theaters, or you're a gig artist and you're kind of like working everywhere, you just meet a lot of people, and then you
Did you
kind
say
of
a geek artist? Or
oh yeah, like gig artists, like this gig or
okay.
that gig, or yeah.
I was like, geek artist? Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a
gig.
thing probably.
That's me, Molly.
I was gonna be like, yeah, I'm more of a geek artist, but I'm not a gig artist. But yeah, I understand what you're saying now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, just working in a lot of different places and running across a lot of different people, and then you know you try out some working relationships and you go, okay, well we did the thing that worked out okay, but then maybe that wasn't quite as easy as it can be for us to work or communicate together, or it wasn't quite as fun as it can be, or our schedules or our goals don't align, so it wasn't as convenient as it could be. I have a collaborator that I keep around for like almost everything I do now. We've been working together in various capacities for like 10 years, maybe 9. I don't really know. It's been a long time, but he's really multi-talented, and he gets I would say he has the same kind of like approach and passionate approach that I do, but we see things very differently. We kind of are aiming the same direction, but we're coming from very different places. So we make a good pair in terms of like, why are you doing that way? And if you can persuade me that that's the way to do it because you're articulate and you think about it and we both ultimately want the same thing for this, then that's the way I need to go. And if I can, and if you're trying to persuade me that, and I'm realizing that no, I really do believe in it this way, then I'm comfortable with pushing forward because I know I've had a strong advocate give me every other reason why I shouldn't do it that way, and my reasons withheld or withstood that. So
Okay. And you find that you can, sorry, I'm trying to think of the word, compromise, like when working with someone like that, when you really believe in a certain aspect of something that you can really, do you get what I'm saying?
yeah. The nice thing about that in terms of this collaborator is we tend to work in things where there's like really clear structures, and sometimes he's kind of the final say and the head honcho of the project, and sometimes I'm kind of the final say and the head honcho of the project, and it just depends on what the project is or how we've structured it or who hired us and how. So ultimately I think like there's more than one right way to do art because it's art. So if I'm like, this is how I would do it and I feel really great about it, but it's like he's head honcho on this project and he feels really great about it,
then
and
he's gonna have that final say.
Yeah, and then it's like that's the way he's gonna do it. That's cool.
Okay, cool. Really interesting to me.
How did you get started in performance, like theater? Were you high school plays?
The real start was like when I first was old enough to write, and I would get all the neighborhood girls over to my house in my living room, and we'd write out plays and perform them for our parents. And they didn't even like have a plot structure. Like we were really young. And then I think my parents just decided that probably needed, that energy might need to go somewhere just besides our home. And so they sent me off to like a theater school acting class kind of thing on a weekly basis. And it just went from there. So all along.
I was curious, so you said this main guy you collaborate with is a guy, and I wondered, do you work with a lot of women, or do you work with more men, and like kind of the differences between the two? Is that okay if I ask that, Dylan?
Yeah,
Do you mind
totally.
if I
That's
jump
a really
in
interesting question.
Yeah, you're a guest host.
Okay, good. I haven't guest hosted, my first time guest hosting, and I'm like, I've got a billion questions. I guess I'll just jump in.
Oh no, jump in.
His name's Anthony Buck, by the way. my main collaborator. And I think when I work with institutions, I guess, or established companies, often those are headed by men traditionally, just because I think that that's sort of where the world is coming from. Right? But I actually work with a lot of women. And I think that that's partly because, at least in Utah where we live, a lot of art is considered to not be a breadwinnable industry. So you're either doing this on evenings and weekends, or you are married to a spouse who has the job that can really support a life. And so if that's the case in a traditional area, then often women are the ones who are finding ways to make that work, because they're not the breadwinner income, but they get their own thing and they have their creative outlet. And I do try to make sure that I'm overtly, like when I'm putting together a production team as a director, I like to make sure that I've got some diversity at the table. The last show I did that I directed had a huge male cast and very few women, and I vied strongly for there to be a second character that was female, even though the script didn't have that character be female. And so I also tried to put a lot of women on my production team for that show, because I just thought this is a lot of men in the arts in one space. So let's have some other voices.
Do things run better when they're women run or men run?
I don't really think that that's it. I don't really think that that is a gender thing. I think I think that one of my favorite producers is a woman. She is organized, and she's got all the follow through, everything that, if we want to get all gender stereotypical, that like maybe a good secretary or executive secretary would do. But I've seen her stand up to male board of directors and be like, this is the thing that needs to happen, and I'm going to kind of call you on how it's not happening in this moment. And I've just been so amazed, not because that was coming from a woman, but because that is a hard situation to navigate regardless of who you are. And she was just effortless at it. I've also seen the same thing, with men in different capacities. I've seen male stage managers handle a breakdown from an actor or an actress that's kind of an emotional breakdown with everything that you might think male stage managers are not stereotypically suited to do. And I really think it just comes down to, skill set, expertise, empathy, and communication, which is not a gender thing.
Yeah. I feel that way too about good qualities are good qualities, and that's not really where they're coming from, but yeah, that's really interesting. I've worked a little bit in film and student films and things like that, and I've really struggled to work with in a male dominated kind of place and really feel, I don't know, comfortable, and try to figure that out, because a lot of industries are men because of traditionally the way things have been. And so it feels like, how did that woman who was a producer really even, like, you know what I mean, like, have the balls to do that. And I don't know if that's just a question for you or a question for her, or just like, a topic in general.
I think a lot of the gender problem things that maybe I've come up against, I haven't come up against as much in the gig work that I've done, where I get to be kind of in charge, like as a director or as a producer. It happens more often when I'm an actress or when I'm a choreographer, and my job is artistically under somebody else's administration. That things can sometimes get dicey. But honestly, and hopefully this changes soon, but anyone who's been in these industries, I think, for any amount of time where they could be considered for these kinds of jobs like producer or director, they've already had to navigate these situations, right? Like multiple times, and they either successfully navigated them or they didn't. And if they're where they're being considered for producer or board of directors or whatever, they probably successfully figured out how to do that.
Yeah.
So
I'd love, to know some of the feedback on some of the things they had to learn the hard way that maybe some of us could, not have to eventually.
contracts. Have contracts.
Okay. Lots and lots of contracts.
I didn't mean to turn it into a whole gender battle thing.
Oh,
That was me. That was totally me.
I tossed you the
100%.
ball and you ran with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Through all the aspects of what you do, who inspires you, and what kind of keeps you going?
Man, like everybody and everything. I think I have creativity ADHD because I get excited about way more things than I can even handle following through with. It kind of happens on an inspiration level too. People who do things for fun and not for money and are really new at them probably inspire me the most, though, because they're at the place of like fear and insecurity, and they could easily be doing anything else, like including watching TV, but they made this thing instead. And the bravery and the rawness of that and the progression you get to see when you watch someone do that again and again and again is like, that's just so cool. I think I really love that. So, I don't have a lot of people that I follow on Spotify, just because I'm loyal to the ones I got. But I have more, I would say, up and coming artists than established artists on like all my playlists. I just love seeing people grow and be brave.
That's awesome, because there is good music out there. The popular stuff's kind of crap, but like the deeper stuff is really good stuff. And there's
Where do you find deeper stuff? I kind of feel like I wouldn't know where to look.
Actually, when it comes to music, that's been the hardest for me because musicians don't tag themselves or sort themselves in a digital way based on the geography of where they live. So I really like to buy local art, right, and support local artists. And that's been very easy on a fine art level, on a filmmaking level, even, because you can tell where the production company's based from. But with musicians, that was so hard. And eventually I just had to throw it out on Facebook and just be like, tell me who is making music in this area. And I joined like local musicians Facebook groups and stuff because there was no Googleable way to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they're trying to stay anonymous that way, geographically, until they're bigger. That way they can, kind of be more receptive to people, I guess. I don't know.
I think most people care more about what your style is and your sound is than where you're from, because they can get you so easily online, or maybe you tour. Like it doesn't really matter where you're from, but I really wanted to go out of my way to find local musicians. So.
Yeah, I found that if I find a local musician, it's not necessarily about the type of music that they have. It's just like, oh my gosh, you're right. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of what you're exposed to, and then you just end up liking things you're exposed to. So I like that idea a lot, and I like that you found a way to do that and use, social media to find that.
As speaking of social media, you just kind of did a rebrand of kind of all your digital stuff. Tell us about that and some of the aspects to it.
That was really intimidating, actually, because they always say like consistency matters the most in your social media stuff, and your brand is so important. And I'm not really like trained in marketing things, and I don't want to sell stuff. I mean, obviously my performance is a product. I'm an actress. I'm my product. I'm my brand, blah, blah, blah. But like, I have my hand in so many different things that it was just getting really unmanageable. So they'd be like, here's the Instagram for my podcast, and here's the Instagram for my poetry, and that's separate from the Instagram and that was just dumb. And so finally I just decided, okay, it's going to hurt. I'll lose followers. It's going to be like a logistical nightmare, but I'm just going to do it. I'm going to pull everything under one like handle or one brand, and it'll go out on more than one social media platform, but it's where all my stuff is going to go. And hopefully people don't just hate that because they're not, I only follow your podcast. I don't want to read your poetry, or I only care about your web series. I don't care about your podcast. Or I'm just hoping that they'll stick with me. It's been really good. It's been only a week since I did that. And I actually gained followers from all over the place in terms of like arts and industry areas that I didn't have fans before. So it seems to be working, but it might be too soon to say. Either way, I'm glad I did it, because the number of passwords and things I have to keep track of has just gone way down, and that's lovely.
Just make them all the same password.
Yeah, I did that for a little while until I locked myself out of an Instagram account that was like connected to the wrong thing, and then I just could never go back, and it was like, well, I guess we just start that over about a year ago. So
yeah, and sometimes
I was looking, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was looking kind of through a link Dylan had sent me, and I just found everything you'd done to be like incredibly impressive, and I liked that it was all together. And I get what you're saying about the branding, is that you're like, well, some people really only want to see XYZ from me, and I also do ABC or whatever. And so I think that's probably a good idea to just put it all together, though, and then people who want to, pick and choose what they want can pick and choose what they want, but they also have now all these other things they can choose from that they can also enjoy from you.
Yeah, I hope it works out. I mean, because I am one of the people I was talking about in terms of my husband has the health insurance for our family with his job. I feel like I have the freedom to kind of not stress too much about my stats, or how many true fans I have, or what the monetization of this is, or that. And in that, I feel like I can just kind of do what I want to do and be me. And if people are interested in what I'm doing, or they want to follow me, they can. And if it turns out that they don't like that, that's fine too. Go find someone you like, like nobody needs to stick around when they don't want to. That's okay. They have a lot of options, and I'm doing it to learn for myself. So I'm not going to take it personally if you're interested in learning other things than what I'm learning.
Yeah. I don't think you would lose anyone. I would just think people would be interested to see all the other things you're doing. But that's my opinion. Which is funny. I love that I'm giving you this advice, because I've struggled with the same thing, where like I have many different things I have my hands into, but my online persona is very geared towards where I make most of my money. And so I feel very scared and almost like embarrassed to cross those brands together,
Yeah. No, I totally get why that's freaky, because I think anytime you're going to be real, there's a little freaky, like it's a little scary, right? Because it could be easy for you to take it personally, or like you don't want rejection or whatever of any kind. But also, like, if your business is tied to it, your money's tied to it too. Any choice where you're like, this could hurt my brand or my label, or those are grocery level decisions. So
yeah, but it's funny. I think I was giving you the advice I needed to hear, and just was kind of reassuring you that as someone who looked at it from my opinion, I was like, I think it's great. So good job.
so yeah, let me know how it goes when you do it.
Okay.
Okay. What situations are most creative for you?
Oh, that's a really tough question. Oh, okay. So I can't remember who said this, but somebody really cool and smart was talking about how you have to have kind of quiet time for creativity to happen, or like downtime or boredom or whatever. I agree with that, but I don't think it's the only time that I'm creative. I think that, this is such a hard question, Dylan. I like it, because you're really making me have to think about how I do stuff on a meta level. Okay, so I think creativity for me happens like when you drop a little bit of ink in water, and you know how there's that really pretty like unfurling of the ink as it distributes in the water. So like that's when inspiration strikes, right? I have this idea and it starts to expand, and if I have time in that moment to follow that expansion, it gets richer and richer, and it's like flow, like it's exciting and it works and it's great until it stops because I'm either interrupted or I got to the end of the idea or whatever. If when that little bit of ink goes into the water and starts to unfurl, if I don't have the opportunity to do something about it right then, sometimes I can get the little ink drop back, but most of the time it just like dilutes into this weird way where I'm not really sure where that idea was going or what happened when I come back to it later and it's cold. So I don't know that I'm more creative when I'm quiet or when there's downtime or when there's boredom or space, but I'm definitely able to ride the energy of whatever that creativity is as long as there's space and time, because chasing back after it, once I've had it, if I couldn't deal with it then, it always kind of loses something of its magic.
Momentum, yeah. Momentum's gone.
And reading your notes later sometimes is a confusing situation.
Yeah. There's plenty of times where I read back on like story notes and plot stuff, and I'm like, clearly I knew what I was talking about, and so I only wrote like the briefest reference, but I have no idea where I was headed with that now.
Who wrote that? Who was that person?
Exactly.
Can I ask what your novel's about?
Sure.
Or is that, you said you're writing a novel, right?
Yes. I have about 60,000 words, and I'm aiming for about 90,000. So theoretically, that means I'm about 2/3 of the way there. But I guess it's a romance, but I wouldn't say. I kind of want to call it a dark romance, but that also feels a little wrong because it doesn't go quite as dark as maybe people who want to read dark romance goes. I don't know. It takes place in like a historical period in England, but it's not really in England. If you've been in England, you'll know the names I'm referencing. But that what happened in that place, I like created a place within that place.
Like a alternate universe, or
like a village. Like a village, right in a very specific county.
Okay.
But
a fictional village.
Yeah, and the geography of the place is all actually accurate to the map. There just wasn't a village there at that time. So,
cool.
I don't want to say it's like historical fiction because the research like isn't as in-depth as people who like historical fiction, but it's kind of a dark period romance is maybe the best way I could sum it up in the fast. I'll tell you where the idea came from for it though. I had this crazy vivid dream where there was this guy who like jumped out of the bushes, and I was in like, I don't know, early 1800s England is kind of what it felt like in my dream. And I knew who he was in my dream, and I was in love with him in my dream. So I was very excited to see him. And he was like, no, you can't go to the village green. And I was like, that's dumb. There's a party. I'm totally going. And then like, you know how dream time doesn't make any sense. Eventually I was at the village green somehow. And all of these like bad guys on horses came in, and they came and they like killed the woman who was getting married that night. And they like killed a bunch of the other villagers, and they started kidnapping people. And at the moment where like the physical commotion stopped and stilled, the person I was in love with in my dream was one of those guys. And he had been trying to keep me from going there because he knew what was going to happen that night. And I woke up and I was like, that's messed up. Like, why are we in love with people who treat women that way? This is terrible. But it was interesting. And then I was like, but what kind of situation would cause a good person to be in that group? Because if my protagonist female is in love with him, he gets to be a good person. And then that just sort of spiraled into a situation of how many obstacles can I put in front of a male protagonist, because we expect our male protagonists to like do things, right? They should fix their situation, especially in period stuff. If the woman is in this situation, she can kind of be like, oh gosh, I don't really have options, but the guy does. And if he's our hero, like what could keep my hero in a villain community where he's still my hero and I'm still rooting for him, but he is just stuck? And how many obstacles can I put in his way so that he has to fight with everything he has to get out? And that's sort of where the plot and the characters of that came from.
That sounds super interesting. I'm really interested in like the psychology aspect of that. Like cool. I'm interested. I'm excited for that. Let me know. I want to read it when it's ready.
Yeah, if you want to be a beta reader for me, I would love it.
I would be a beta reader. I would love to be a beta reader.
Thank you.
It kind of seems like it has an Outlander It's a TV series, and Turn kind of feel to it. Turn was on, I think, AMC, and it like took place like Civil War time, and I think it kind of had that duality aspect to it. But yeah, it sounds super interesting, and I'm not a big reader, but you know, I will be a big reader too, just
Thank you,
for
Dylan.
feedback. So make me read a book. I need to. It's been a while. Let's see. Molly, do you have any questions?
Sorry. I was just going to say, I hope it's on Audible and then you get to do the, like, you know, the voice. And I just, because I know, it'd be so cool.
I voiced an audiobook for the first time ever this summer, and the ingenue hero protagonist, whatever, was this really quirky, fun girl who lived in Chicago and wanted to be an author. And I felt like she was just about as close to me as any character could possibly be. So the thought of voicing another character that is a little bit different from her at the moment, like hard on the heels of someone that was so obviously native to myself, is kind of like, oh gosh, that's intimidating. I might actually have to like act as opposed to just show up and
be natural.
Yeah.
What was that? Can I listen to that?
It is still under the Audible approval process. So Audible listens to every second. Like a human person listens to every second of every audiobook to approve it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that because you just assume it would be automated, right? And they do have like some automated checks so that the person isn't listening to things that obviously don't qualify or meet their standards. But if you think about the number of people who are going through Audible and stuff like that, yeah, they have quite a little turnaround time on their approval of those audiobooks. So the book itself is actually out, but the audiobook is still in its approval process.
Okay, what's the book?
It's called To Dream in Daylight by author Candace J. Thomas. She's a local author, and she's so fun. You should consider looking into interviewing her because she has the coolest ideas for things. So To Dream in Daylight is, it's kind of Sleepless in Seattle, but these two people meet in their dreams and they don't believe either one of them exists. And
dang.
Yeah, so it
cool.
shifts between her first person perspective, his first person perspective, and then like the third person omniscient dreaming chapters where they actually interact. And she does this horribly embarrassing thing, and the video of it goes viral, and he sees it and realizes that she's like a real person. And then he goes on a quest to find her in as less stalker a way as possible in order to tell her that like he's real and she's real, and they've been in love for years, just thinking that they were figments of each other's imaginations.
Cute.
Oh, that is cool. That would be a good movie. I would
really
like to see that.
Yeah, I would watch that. I would definitely watch that.
So we talked about notes a few minutes ago, and before we started, we got a tour of your office there with your computer, and we saw your pocket wall.
Yeah. I don't want to make anyone motion sick by turning this around, but I might pull it off of the wall so then you can see it if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. It came with me. That was rad. This is my pocket list.
Pocket list. So you said it was like your bucket list, but like much more close term?
Yeah. So my pocket list is a quick way to organize like things I really want to do, but I can't do right now. So I'm just keeping them in my back pocket. So like this is my graphic novel, which I have it all summarized. It's like an 8-page summary, but I have to turn it into a script in order to give it to a comic book illustrator so that they can like lay out the panels. And that's like, I'm ready to do it. I just have other things that are like deadlines first. So that's sitting there reminding me this is the next step for that. I have all these ideas for music videos I want to produce. So I like write them on scraps of paper and I throw them in there. Ideas for the web series that I do, which I make my best friend do things that are out of her comfort zone because her therapist told her she should do that. And then she wasn't going to listen to her therapist. And I'm like, no, you should do this. So these are ideas of things that like, oh, Kelly would totally be uncomfortable doing that. And then
real quick, what is your web series?
It's called She Made Me Do It because I make my best friend do stuff.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's awesome.
It's fun. That's a project that unfortunately gets put in the back pocket way more often than it should. I wish I moved that forward more fast, but we haven't yet. I have a short story. I have a whole bunch of picture books, a radio play, all these ideas for this convention I work for. And then I probably need a whole nother one of these because they're spilling out. I have one last catch-all that has like 8 different ideas in it because I'm out of pockets. But yeah.
So do you set time aside every day to kind of like, and then do you at random kind of pick whatever's like jumping out at you to work on, or do you know what you're working on each day? Or
this year I know what I'm working on each day because I've had surprisingly a lot of consistent work or projects that were long enough that but they covered me for months, and then by the time they were wrapping up there was another one that was a contract and it had a deadline. And so I have like this little just like weekly schedule thing, right? So today I know exactly like what I've got to hit because I have a contract I want to fulfill by the end of the week. But I also like breaks for what I'm working on. So I'll have like the main project. This is the thing that's due that I have to move forward. And then, every couple hours I'm going to go have a creative affair with this other project for a minute and work on that for just a little bit.
you cheat on your projects with other
totally,
projects?
Yes, I do.
I'm judging you so
Judge
much
me
right
too.
now. I thought you were a different kind of person, but
no, I am polyamorous with the things that I like to do creatively. Not in my real life.
Pretty hip right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
I love to hear about that because I've found in myself and in a lot of other people I've worked with, a lot of creative people tend to really struggle to organize their life and their thoughts and their projects. So it's nice to see what you're doing and to take notes.
I was raised by like a hardcore businesswoman.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, so a sweet, compassionate person, but somebody who back in the day when you still had to wear suits that were dresses would walk into a boardroom of men at a publicly traded company because she was the consultant they hired for efficiency stuff. So like I grew up with the 7 habits of highly successful teens and all kinds of stuff. And I'm glad because it moderated my other wild tendencies.
Yeah, so you didn't have to learn those qualities. They were in you. I mean, you did have to learn them then, but like, as an adult, you had them ingrained in you.
Yeah, I have some good habits definitely from my parents that make my creativity less chaotic.
Nice. Very cool.
Well, let's talk about COVID. I was trying to figure out a way to avoid it, but it affects everybody and their creativity and their workflow and their work. Past 9 months, how has it affected you? Because you do performance, so that got yanked.
Yeah. Actually, the show that I had scheduled to direct this year managed to open and close before COVID quarantined everything. So I feel like insanely lucky that my major main stage piece happened this year because it closed mid-February. I definitely had plans to work in some films and to do some choreography stuff that definitely got shifted around. So fortunately, I guess by having creativity ADHD and kind of wanting to do a lot of things, I already had some things kind of going that I could just sort of focus on more. So this year I've done way less film, way less theater, but I've done a lot more writing, like a lot more writing because I can do that by myself and just email my collaborator. And that's just sort of worked out for me that way, I guess. To answer your question, I don't even know.
Yeah, it did. For me and us with the podcast, it made things easier. It's like I was able to actually lock down people to interview, which was a nice twist to it. But it's also sad to see how it's affected, people where that's their livelihood. I'm drawing a blank. Molly, pull us out of this. Do you have any questions?
I just have 1,000 million, and I've been trying to be like super polite because I'm like, this isn't, I'm a guest host. So
go for it.
I mean, now I'm drawing a blank because like the whole time I've been like, just ask the one question. Don't ask the 50,000 you have. So I'm trying to think, what are some of the questions I was thinking of? You can edit this out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Me just trying to think. I don't know. I think right now at this point, I think my brain's just like, no more questions, but I do feel just like super impressed with you and like super like inspired by the stuff you're doing, and just feel really happy and excited that Dylan thought to invite me, and I'm like, thanks. So I mean, I'm not trying to like wrap up the thing, I'm just saying like that's all that's coming to me right now is that, you know, I just think what you're doing is super super cool, and to show a woman who's kind of like got so many eggs in so many different baskets, and you seem very well adjusted. You know what I mean? Like for me, I try to do different things and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna like, you know, but yeah, I think, yeah, just I'm really inspired by you. So
lest you think that it's like this always. So last week I was driving to the park to go like get some exercise, and I just had this like overwhelming wave of like, yeah, you know what? If you died today, nobody would miss you. Which I don't
oh my
really feel like
God.
that's true,
So
right?
you
But
are
like,
in fact a human woman,
yeah,
is what you're saying.
yeah,
Okay.
no, you have like imposter syndrome or like the demons in your head or like whatever your insecurity voices are. I mean, that happens way more often than I want it to. But I just try to drown them out with other things. Or actually, the way it went last week was just like, okay, well, maybe that's true, but that's because I do things that, you know, like they're nice, but they're not like necessary to survival. You know, my kids depend on me for food, but my fans don't. So yeah, it's okay that they would survive if I died. Like, that's good. Shut up, voice. Like, yeah. Like, and even if nobody likes what I'm doing today, that's fine. I like what I'm doing today, so it doesn't matter. And then I just try to like yell louder than those things, I guess.
Yeah. And it's true, at the end of the day, like you've got to make yourself happy and fill your own cup, or you don't have it to give to your family and your kids or your work or anybody else. So yeah.
I highly recommend finding a friend who is very honest and very caring and very smart, and just having a mutual agreement that you won't overuse, where you can call them up and be like, I just kind of need some praise right now. Because they won't just blow fake praise at you because they're too honest.
Yeah.
But they're observant and they love you, and so they do have something that they can always say. And then if you're not calling them all the time, you still believe them when they say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have an overt agreement with a friend of mine right now, where we can just be like, I need praise on this thing, whatever praise you want, because I want it to be honest, but I just need it. So.
Yeah, I think everybody needs that. And I definitely have. I call my sister up and I'm like, hey, hype me up. And usually before a situation where I'm like, I'm walking in and I know these people either don't like me, don't want to see me, or whatever, or like maybe it's just the voices in my head telling me that. But yeah, I got to call up and be like, hype me up, tell me I'm great, because I need it. So I agree with you. I think that's cool.
Yeah,
Dylan, do you have someone who does that?
Oh, I have a few people. You're good at hyping me up, Molly. Like, especially at the end of our last episode that we recorded, you said many sweet things.
I can struggle to be effusive sometimes. I'm not sure what that is in me, but I do know that when I do say something, people know how much I mean it, because I'm not typically that way. And so if it is coming out of my mouth, it's like, it's been weighing on me a lot, that how much you mean to me, and how much I think of you if I am actually going to say something about it, because I'm not always that way.
And I have a few people that are brutally honest. Like this girl I work with, you know, we're very similar personalities, and we can be brutally honest with each other, and it's nice. And she knows about all the stuff
You
I
gotta
work
have
on.
that.
Yeah, because spouses and significant others, they either sugarcoat it or they're too honest.
Well, they
Like
have to live with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, call me on my stuff, but be gentle.
Yeah, sugarcoat it.
Sugarcoat just a little. I've lived with you. I don't want to dislike you. Um, I feel like it's a good point to do the bonus questions. And I'm not sure if we had these when Molly was on, so you're free to answer them too, Molly. The
Okay.
first one, what does creativity mean to you?
I mean, I asked you this on my podcast and I still remember your answer. It's like bouncing around in my head. So I guess trying to not say what you said or just steal straight up plagiarize from you.
If you can make me sound smart, go for it.
I think I would say it's just making anything, whether it's a thought that you didn't have before, but like you created it, you know, telling yourself your own story, or like deciding that this is the person that you're going to be and now you're going to work towards being that person. That's an act of creation. Or people who decorate homes pretty, that is not me. But that's a creativity thing. So yeah, it's making something, and that thing doesn't have to be a tangible thing. I love creative people who can make me laugh just by the things they say. That's cool.
I agree. Molly,
You want me to answer that?
If you want to.
Okay. I was kind of just listening to her, and the first thing that comes to my mind is creativity to me is usually like problem solving. And sometimes that's very logical things in my life, and other times that's how do I process my own life or things that have happened in my life, and finding creative ways to do that. And typically that can end up being a podcast, or writing, or creative things in that way. I don't know, that's probably all I have right now.
No, that's good.
I super like her answer.
It's a good answer.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Okay, I was like, that wasn't super articulate, but I was like, I'm glad you picked up what I was laying down.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
I say that. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? And here, it does not land. In my house, that statement does not land. That's one of my favorite things I like saying. Next is, who's your favorite Muppet and why?
Oh, Animal. Actually, the blonde one in the band who has the bangs, right? And you can never see her face. And she's always just like, I don't know. But I don't know her name. She's like not even a major Muppet, but I love her. She's
like the hippie kind of one that looks stoned, or
I think it's Janice.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good nerding out on you, Dylan.
Oh, Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mannheim is the name of the band.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. That's impressive.
Nerd. I'm a nerd.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a geek artist. And then lastly, in the movie of your life, this is always weird to ask actors. In the movie of your life, who would you like to play you?
Probably Jennifer Garner.
I could see that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Dang, even the way you like speak, and like obviously the way you look, but also the way, what's that called? Elocution? Am I saying that right?
Sure. Yeah.
The way you elocute. You elocute. Like her.
What's your favorite Jennifer Gardner movie?
Yeah. That's good. Oh, this is gonna sound so snotty. I don't like her movies very much. I just really like her. No, I like.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, those 13 going on 30 is charming,
Okay.
right? And like, but
That's my pick.
She often makes some pretty terrible movies. But no, she just seems like a person that you could be a neighbor with, and that like she would probably bring you cookies on the plate that you let her borrow when you talked over the fence yesterday. Like,
aww.
I just think she seems like a real human being. I loved her in Alias. Can we pretend that was a movie?
Yeah. It's a big,
Alias.
big long movie.
Yeah. Yeah. She's tough.
Oh yeah. Alias was awesome. I do not like her asking me what's in my wallet though. That's getting a little personal.
Yeah,
is she the brand person for that now?
Yeah. What's in your wallet?
Pick up on that.
Yeah.
Huh. Good for her.
Every once in a while, I just watch what she's doing with her hair, and I think, okay, so that's what that would look like if I did that with my hair, and then she gives me good ideas.
Nice. You're
Awesome.
like, what are we doing now? Okay.
I don't have a lot of options.
You
Wigs, I
just look
guess.
up. You're like, what's Bruce Willis doing now? I'll just do whatever he's doing, right?
Oh, speaking of Bruce Willis, this is a tangent. There's a new car battery commercial from Die Hard batteries, and it's basically a mini Die Hard movie, but it's a Die Hard battery commercial. I just saw this
With him?
With him, yeah.
This
Oh
sounds
my
great.
gosh.
Yeah, it was fun to watch this morning. Kind of made my morning.
That's what
Okay,
I'll be
I'm gonna-
Googling later.
Exactly. I'm like, as soon as this is over, I'm gonna Google Die Hard battery commercial, Bruce Willis.
Yeah, it was fun. So, Adam Hollywood, back to you. Where can everybody catch your stuff, and what's the new moniker of your rebrand, and where can everybody find everything?
The easiest place to find everything is LizzieLizzieLiz.com. So LizzieLizzieLiz.com. And then social media, I'm the Creative Curiosity Community. So whether that's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, that's where those things are. But you can find links to all of those from my website. So if you just want to go to LizzieLizzieLiz.com, it'll shoot you everywhere else you want to be, I guess.
Very nice. And that's a very fun name. I like it.
Lizzie Liz. Lizzie, yeah, I like it a lot. Lizzie Liz.
It has a rhythm to it.
Yeah,
It does.
it's memorable. It gets in their heads.
It's funny when you have to like say it to people at the store and they're going to write it down or something, because they always have this look like, did I hear you right? That was kind of
Lizzie. Lizzie.
Yep, again.
Liz.
What's my bet? Let. So, yeah.
Can you say that faster? Well, thank you so much. Once again, thanks for having me on your podcast. I really enjoyed that. And you made me sound really smart, and I really appreciate that.
That was not a hard thing to do, Dylan.
Can she be on my podcast too?
If she wants to.
If you let me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love it. I think it'd be really fun.
Yay. Well, thank you.
We'll get it figured out. And thanks, Molly. It's always great
thank
seeing
you.
and
Thanks for
collaborating
having me.
with you. And
Anytime.
everybody, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thanks.
Wait, do we hang up now?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. Is this like for reals leaving or just end of recording?
I've never done a Zoom
ended the
podcast.
recording, and usually the guests disappear at this point. It's like, okay, we've had enough of Dylan. Let's.
Okay. Then I will say goodbye. And
Okay.
but yeah, if you really would read it for me, Molly, when it's ready, I'd love to send it to you.
I would be so happy to read something like that, and it's definitely a topic I would be interested in. I love period stuff. I love romance. So yeah, please think of me when you're ready, and I would love to. And I did study creative writing at Weber State. So yeah, I think I would really, really love to read it.
I'm just throwing my email in the chat. So if you just want to shoot me an email at some point, then I can add you to that. And then your podcast, it's Ask a Stripper, right?
It's Ask the Stripper. Yeah, I honestly didn't want to like mention it on yours because like I don't want to cross over with that where people are going to be offended. You know what I mean? So I'd love to have you on mine just to speak as a woman, just because I think you're super interesting and I think you're really fun to talk to. Is Dylan still here?
He is.
Yeah.
I was like, you can go. I'm just kidding.
I'm just being
no,
very
I love
quiet
you so
and
much,
polite.
Dylan. I'm just being funny. So yeah, I'd love to have you on if you are comfortable doing that.
I would be very comfortable doing that. I don't have any need to like tell you that you need to be where I'm at, but I don't swear or anything like that. I don't know. It won't bother me if it won't bother me to be on something like if you were swearing as the host, it wouldn't bother me.
I'll pick up
the name of the I obviously am not a stripper, so we wouldn't be asking me about that kind of stuff because I'd be like, I don't know. They dance and they're talented, and I know most of them buy wigs.
A lot of them do. It's been a more popular thing recently, and I think it was a popular thing in like the 90s. But then for a long time it wasn't. Anyways, it's stuff that we could chat about and whatever.
No, I'd
But
love to
yeah,
be on your
thank you.
podcast.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for letting
Awesome.
me join you.
Thank you. Have a lovely day, you both.